I'm going to go by the pillars that we use
Yes.
In my program, because I feel like they are the pillars that I have seen that worked for me. And we see the rinse and repeat of a lot of the ladies. We've worked with over 5,000 women. So I think that we have enough data to back it up. I think that the first thing is the mindset. That's pillar number one. And I feel like that's a big piece of the puzzle that is missing in, I would say, the majority of fitness programs currently, because like I was talking in the beginning, they just address the logistical piece of it. They're not addressing the other dimensions of someone. So, having the mindset, because the way that I look, you guys cannot see my hands, but I'll try to talk it through. If the body changes, but the mind doesn't change, the body is going to go back to where the mind is, because the mind is the set point for the body. So if you transform your body, but you're still stuck on the perfectionist mentality, the all or nothing, the extremes, the comparison game, all of that, it's just a matter of time until you go back. And that's why people stay stuck on that cycle. So you need to help the mind and the body progress together. A lot of times they don't progress at the same time. But what happens is that if you have a little bump on the road right here on your physique journey, the pushback is just a little bit instead of coming all the way back to the beginning.
Nathalia Melo, welcome to Passion, Love, Pursuit podcast. I am so excited to have this conversation with you, because I feel like even though I have not been in your world of competing and fitness competitions, I've been definitely submerged in fitness and wellness for, I think since I was 14 years old. Really, that's when I dove into it. But it's a part of who I am. It's my identity. It's everything I do. And, I just love sitting down with people that are really specialists in the field, because I think we could all learn a little bit more and kind of see all angles of the business and how we could really set ourselves up for success with all our goals. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I was very excited when we were introduced and you invited me to be here. So thanks for having me. And I'm excited for the conversation. I think even some of the things that we touched before we went live. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Well, I'm just going to jump right in. So for those that don't know you, you come from a background of professionally competing in fitness competitions. Specifically, you actually received the title of Miss Olympia, which is such a goal. I mean, that's such an accomplishment. So congratulations on that. But there is a vast difference from training to compete to then training for life. And so I'd love to hear how you transitioned out of that particular lifestyle to then transitioning into sustainable fitness and a nutrition program that actually served and complemented your lifestyle today.
I love this question, and kind of like piggybacking on what we were talking beforehand. I feel like a lot of people get into the competition world, at least back in my day. I sound so old to say this, but whenever I first started competing, it's kind of like presented to you as you're going to be the poster child of health and fitness, and like it's all about the health. And slowly, I don't even want to say like slowly. I believe that my come to Jesus moment, that I realized that what I was doing wasn't really aligned with a goal of like health and sustainability. And whenever I say health, I'm not even just talking about physical health. I feel like we need to talk about the emotional health associated with that as well, that is not discussed. The come to Jesus moment for me was when I was dating my husband, who at the time was a professional rugby player. And I started to pay attention to his lifestyle. And my husband competed at the highest level. He represented his country. He played for Ireland. He played professional for 15 years. So it was a very good kind of like almost comparison. I was, competing at an elite level, had won the Olympia. And my husband was also an elite athlete. And I started to see that my husband had a life outside of his sport. My husband could go to a restaurant and not be obsessing about every single, little thing of food that he was putting in his mouth. He didn't feel like he had to overcompensate with extra cardio. And like that started to get my wheels spinning, because whenever you are in it, it's hard for you to see like the forest for the trees because everybody around you in that environment of competing does the same thing.
Right.
So it's kind of like, when you're around a whole bunch of people who get wasted all the time, that's your normal. So you don't know how to differentiate. So being exposed to a lot of other professional athletes through my husband's friends and my husband, I was like, holy crap. And he was getting paid to perform and show up for training. And I was only getting paid if I won. So that was when like things started to become a bit more clear for me. And then the last straw was a bit whenever I started to turn trips away because I didn't feel like I looked good enough. We've been to all these beautiful places in the world. It's interesting because there is one particular trip that we went to in June of 2012, which was the year before I won the year that I won the Olympia. This is in June. I won the Olympia in September. We went to the Amalfi Coast. Do you know how many photos I have in a swimming suit from that trip in Capri? I have 2 photos and both of them are from like just under my boob up because I didn't want to show my belly.
So, is it because you were in the bulking stage?
No, because I felt self-conscious. It was always like if I'm not like perfect, like stage ready, I'm not worthy of a picture. I'm not, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was kind of when things started to become a bit more clear. And then whenever I had my kids, I was like, there is no way that I can sustain that lifestyle. And my kids are 14 months apart.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I got pregnant with my daughter whenever my son was 4.5 months. I was like, there is no way that I'm going to be able to sustain that kind of training, like hours of training every single day. There were times when I was competing that I was training 5-6 hours a day. How do you do that with like 2 very small kids and stay sane and run a business and all of that? And I feel that that's where a lot of women find themselves by, not adapting to the season of life that they're in. They will be in the trenches with, being the caretaker for parents, having children, ascending in their career, but they're still trying to do what they did in college when their only responsibility was to have clean underwear. And it's not realistic. It's not sustainable. So
is that exactly? And I think that, I mean, you mentioned something that was really interesting as when you're in that competing and training for any sort of competition, your environment is all the same. And so it's hard to differentiate the difference between a normal person that's, living their life and actually having a downtime. And you, like you said, it's like you spend hours and hours in the gym and training, and then your off time is worrying about what you're eating. And, there's so many factors. So I know that the big component that I talk a lot about is identity. And I think when you have your identity wrapped in being a competitor, how do you shift into then not being one? Like, what was that transition like for you?
Oh my God, this is nobody has ever asked me that. This is such a powerful question, really, because I think it's a question that is not asked and it's not talked about. And for me, what I find that I was very fortunate is that throughout the process, I had a lot of good friends in the industry that always had honest conversations with me about the shelf life that you have in the industry, especially as a woman.
Yes.
So the conversation was always had. So they always kept, we always had very honest conversations I had with these friends of mine who always talked about you need a life outside of competing. You have to have interests outside of competing. So I think that what made the transition like not as hard for me was because I had very clear boundaries from the moment I started on when I would stop. And for me was whenever I stop having fun, like having the butterflies, whenever it starts to become, and that's not to say that everything in life that you're going to do is going to be fun all the time. I hated a lot of my preps, but you always came together the day of competing. And for me, there was like one particular show that was my last show that I woke up and I'm like, ugh, which it was not. And that's kind of when it started to click. And having comfort that that competing was just a part of me, but it was not the whole of me. I had a life outside of competing that wasn't in any way, shape, and form attached to my identity as a competitor. Like, for example, my husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, he never really gave a crap whether I was competing or not competing. He changed none. He wasn't dating the girl in the magazine. He was dating me for who I am. He didn't, he was proud of my accomplishments, but it wasn't the things in conversations that he led with. My friends were friends with me, not because of my accomplishments. My friends were friends with me because of who I am as a person. And I think that whenever you keep that identity of yourself that is not directly attached to your accomplishments on the stage or anything really,
Yes.
it makes, and I see this now, for example, with motherhood, with marriage, with friendships, with career, not making certain parts of your life your whole identity makes it a lot easier to not be so attached to it. And I think that that is what made it easy for me. And also just looking around in the environment. I mean, I have a lot of friends in the fitness space, but I would look around and I would see, everybody, like, you didn't see a lot of marriages that lasted. You didn't see a lot of loyalty. You didn't see a lot of respect. And I was like, do I want to be in this kind of environment whenever I have kids? And I think that it made the decision easy for me.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I think, like you said, it's important to talk about this because I think, as you said, this applies to anything. When we attach to any certain thing being the all, and then when that world gets shaken, it's like, who am I then? And then people get in this spiral and depression, anxiety over like not knowing who they are or how they fit into the world anymore. And so I think it's so important to kind of like break that down. And so that's great advice just for anybody, is having something outside of this box, if you want to say, that brings you meaning and comfort and purpose. So beautiful. How did your mindset specifically need to change as you transitioned out of this period? Like what were some of the big things that if you learned, if you want to say, in that industry that you had to break free from?
First, I think that it's important to highlight that a lot of times when I speak about my experience competing, oh my God, you should just be grateful because you're only here because of your experience. And, I'm very grateful from the lessons that I learned throughout competing, from the opportunities, that the doors that it opened. But I think that I'm in a position to speak up about the problem with extremes. And this is not just in the competition world. I think that this is a reflection of the world now with the fad diets and things like that. I think that the competing side of it is a version of it in steroids, no pun intended. But you see, like, the cycle of all or nothing is the same.
Yes.
It's just that in competing, the end goal of it is to get on a stage and walk around in a bikini. And for, like, in real life, it might be to wear a swimming suit for your vacation, or to get ready for a wedding, or to whatever that is. So I think that the biggest mindset transition that I had to experience, and I feel like every woman that has been on a cycle of trying different diets, and that, I'm going to try this and I'm going to go all in, I'm going to do a crash, whatever here, is to understand that there is no end date. The end date's the coffin.
Right.
You see, like, and I feel like people are always giving this deadline. Oh, I'm just gonna, eat lettuce and ice cubes and go all in and, like, go run 5 miles every second, 3 times a day, 7 days a week, and eat, juice, like drink juice for 7 days. But then, can you maintain that? Can you sustain that? So the moments that I started to peel the layers and get out of my own way with the all or nothing mentality. And I think that especially at the time of the release of this recording, which is probably going to be around December, that's where we see a lot, like, the real life version of it. It's kind of, oh, I'm going to completely take the foot off the gas from my fitness journey because I'm on vacation. But how is that going to allow you to have a sustainable lifestyle if you're always you stop and starting? Oh, but I have a trip. I mean, you had a trip last year and you had a trip the year before, and then you also had Christmas, and then you also had the holidays, and you also had summer. So, people fail to adapt as life be lifing. And they keep on being stuck on that all or nothing mentality. So I think that this was the first mindset shift that I had to make. And it sounds a lot easier said than done. And that's why I have such a big problem with the quick fixes, the, overnight transformation kind of stuff, because it doesn't address the root cause of the problem, which is the attachment to the all or nothing.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody says, as you kind of mentioned, like, I'll start when the kids go back to school. I'll start when the summer began, or whatever it may be, like whatever excuse there is. And it's like, it really is like just small steps over time leads to sustainable results. And it's like, that's what happens in New Year's. Like, people are like, okay, I start New Year's, I'm going to start my training regimen, whatever. And then, of course, as we know, most of them fall off in February because they go so hard at it. And it's like they haven't prepped themselves to build up that foundation that leads them to, I think identity comes in play when, somebody, let's say, wants to lose weight and they see themselves as this overweight person that's not fit, not healthy. And it's like, how does somebody build up a sustainable result when they're going in there hating a part of them and fighting against this version of them that they are now?
No, 100%.
I love how you talk about that. I think it's so important because that's really what I wanted to talk to you mostly about is sustainable results. Because I think as we shift through these seasons in life, which you've been through many of seasons, obviously having kids and then competing and now, coaching and also achieving the body you have now. It's like all these stages you went through, of course, so many different seasons of your life, but you had to shift into those gradually. And then
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that even piggybacking on what I was meant, another thing that I had to let go is, I like to do things perfect. Like it's all in, it's perfect. If I cannot be 100,000,000% at it, what's the point? And it's a version of like if perfectionism and all or nothing had a baby. And I feel like that's a pattern that a lot of women fall into. It's like, oh, if I cannot be perfect, what's the point? Like, I cannot be perfect when I'm on vacation. I cannot be perfect when, the kids are off school, or whenever my kids are traveling home from college, or whenever I'm being the caretaker for my parents, or whenever I'm in menopause, whatever the season of life is. But the thing that, and I feel this in my heart because I'm the same. But then I think that whenever we objectively look at our lives, imagine, we work with a lot of attorneys. So imagine that every time that an attorney lost a motion, she was like, yep, that's it. This law business is not for me, and quit their career. That's not how it works.
Right.
There are going to be good days, there are going to be bad days. And that's something that I tell all the time to anybody that comes work with us. It's like, if you're coming to work with us expecting to be perfect 24/7 and to be, to have no bumps on the road or anything like that, I'm not the person for you. Because that is not a reflection of life. What I can and oh, am I going to be perfect? Are you going to do everything for me to be perfect? I can't guarantee that because we don't have control of the circumstances of life. What I can guarantee is that we're going to support those people on how to better navigate as life lives, as the season comes, and how to adapt to the different stages. And I feel that that's a big piece of the puzzle that people are missing to accept. Because it isn't just about, if it was just a matter of nutrition and training. I mean, we have ChatGPT today.
Right.
We live in a season
that could be a trainer.
Yeah, we live in a season where there is an abundance of information. Like, I don't think that in the history of humankind, there has ever been such an abundance of information. Yet, in the United States, we still have a 73% obesity. 73% of the population is either obese or overweight. So clearly, the problem is not just the training and nutrition.
Right.
Oh, tell me how much I should eat. I'm like, there's a zillion calorie calculators on the internet. Help yourself. I think that the piece of the puzzle that is missing is the behavioral piece, is the knowledge, being kinder to yourself with accepting that it is not going to be linear. It's not going to be perfect all the time, and how to pivot your mindset and your perception of what success looks like as these events happen, because inevitably they will happen. So that is a big piece of the puzzle that I believe it's missing right now in order for people to have long-term results, because the nutrition and the training is a very one-dimensional way of approaching physical and emotional changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would love to hear, because one of the things, as I was kind of talking offline, is the food and what competing, like how regimen you have to be with your nutrition. And I'm curious, how did you rebuild your relationship with food after leaving competing?
Oh, this is another great question. You know, it's interesting because whenever I speak about the solution, a lot of the pushback that I get is like, oh, but it's easy for you to say because X, Y, and Z. And I think that I would love to share my experience when I was the lowest of the lows, which funnily enough was immediately after winning the biggest bodybuilding competition in the world, which was, I mean, I was happy, I was elated that my work had paid off. But in that same night, I literally had a sick bucket near my bed because I literally ate myself sick.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? And like the next day, I had to show up in the booth that for the company that I was working at, and I was self-conscious to wear a crop top. I didn't want to take photos. Like, a lot of my photos is me covering myself. You know, like I turned trips away to New Zealand to do an appearance because I didn't think that I looked good enough. Had opportunities to, shoot with the best photographers in the fitness space, like kind of, hey, let's do the photo shoot in a month. I would say no, because I turned away trips. I turned away going to the beach with my friends. So I've been in the trenches, in the emotional trenches of the dark side of those extremes. And that's why I'm so incredibly passionate about it. Because I feel like, although I was never severely overweight, the feeling of shame is the same. And the feeling of not having peace. And what I mean by that is that you're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly thinking about your discomfort. You're constantly thinking about it, what you're going to eat next. You're constantly thinking about how much you have messed up already because you ate a sliver of cookies. And then it's like, oh, I might as well have the whole box of cookies because I already messed it up. So, it's not as black and white as people may sound like. So to go back to your answer, how does that transition happen? I think it happens with accepting that it is not as objective. I'm just going to train my plan. I'm just going to change my, my nutrition. Like, I just have to play around with my macros. So I just have to, go from GVT training to training full body and do a bro split or whatever. This is the objective part of it. And the objective part of it is almost like a detail in the grand scheme of things. It is about what is really going to drive the change is understanding that the process takes time. And even if you do get help, getting help is not going to eliminate the process. Is going to facilitate the process, but the work needs to start within yourself with learning how to control the controllables and let it go of what you cannot control.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about that. I'm curious your experience and some of the things you're talking about. Did you witness this happening around you, like this in like the uncontrollable binge eating, like, oh, if I, right after you compete, then you'd have a binging episode or
all the time.
Yeah.
It is prolific.
Wow.
It is prolific. It's interesting because I actually posted I have a reel that I posted a while back, and then I posted again just to see how people would respond, that it was talking about how I knew at the time, I lived in Fort Lauderdale at the time. I knew every single 7-Eleven within like a 3-5 mile ratio of my house. And the reason for that is because I would go to every single one of them and buy dozens of cookies. So I would go to this one, but I was embarrassed. So I would buy this one, and I would go to this one. I would buy like half a dozen, and then I would eat everything in the car, and I'll drive to the next one.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll drive to the next one, and then I'll drive to the next one. And then whenever I posted that, people are like, "Oh yeah," like people are acting like that's normal behavior.
Right.
I'm like, y'all are, and that's what I'm saying about whenever you are in the environment, you talk about that, people laugh, or, oh, I'm going to burn. And we see this even in a more mainstream environment of fitness. Like you go to a fitness class, it's like, ooh, on a Monday in the languages, oh, we need to burn off everything that we ate on the weekend. This is a common language, but that's not normal behavior. That is a disordered eating pattern. Yeah. Exercise is not punishment. And the more you start to, associate exercise with punishment for what you're eating, the more exercise stops to be enjoyable, and food stops being a celebration and just being something that we use as a society to celebrate a lot of times. So if you do not know how to behave around food, it doesn't matter how much you exercise. And it just becomes that toxic cycle.
And I think that really applies to anybody, because I think a lot of people do think of exercise as this punishment, like I have to burn off these calories, like you just mentioned. Such a good thing to point out, because it should be like, I love my body, that's why I'm working out.
Yes. And it's funny because a lot of times, and I feel like that there is this perception that you can only want to improve your body if you're overweight. You can only want to get help if you're overweight. Like the amount of women that I would speak to, and they're like, oh, I feel like crap. My clothes don't fit. And they are almost like justifying, oh, but I'm not even like that big. All my friends come to me and they tell me that they will die to look. Why are we giving a crap about what other people say if you are living in a body that is making you feel unhappy and not allowing you to live your life to its fullest? So yeah. I do think that we need to change the narrative. Like, is obesity and, being overweight a problem? 100%. But just because you're not obese and overweight and you don't feel good in your body, it does not mean that just because you're not overweight and obese that you shouldn't want to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's just, I want to really serve the people that are listening today. But I do think it's important to pinpoint these toxic, if you want to say, things that you possibly learned in this industry that you see a lot of people in the world doing today. What would be some of the other things you would pinpoint that you learned? You already named a few, but that you're seeing in people you work with that you witnessed in the industry you were so passionate about.
I think, how much time have we got? Right. I think that it's also the toxic cycle. And what I mean by that, it's kind of like I would speak with someone and then they'll be like, oh my goodness, I want to lose 20 pounds, for example. And then we're like, okay, so like, what do you think needs to happen? Because I like to make this in a collaborative format. People are like, well, less time that I cut out carbs, cut out sugar, cut out alcohol, cut out gluten, cut out all of this. I lost, it really worked. So I think I maybe should just like go back to that. And I'm like, okay. So is your goal, and what happened whenever you stopped doing that? Oh, I gained all the way back. And I'm like, right. And how sustainable did you think that that was for the life that you enjoy to have? Oh my goodness, it wasn't sustainable at all. And I'm like, and is it your goal to, gain the weight and lose the weight, gain the weight and lose the weight, gain the weight, lose the weight continuously until the end of times? Oh my goodness, no, I want to lose it and keep it off. And I'm like, so how does it make sense to keep on going back to the very thing that got you here? And the problem with this cycle of like going and it has different variations of that. It might be like, oh, last time I tried, I don't know, keto, I'm just going to use for example. Oh, and then before that, I did, a detox that I had water for like 7 days and it was great. Okay. Then you gain it all back. So they just keep on changing the label of it, but it's still the same bullshit.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that nobody talks about is the emotional impact that it has on how people perceive themselves. Because if every time that you try some kind of extreme like that, that is toxic, and you fail because you are deemed to fail, these things are not made for you to succeed. How does that make you feel? Oh, I feel like a failure. I suck. Why is it that I don't have discipline? I cannot stick to anything. And then that's the story that they're telling themselves. And then they go to the, juicing for a week. And then they're like, oh my goodness, I failed at that too. So what is the next thing? And then they just keep on jumping from thing to thing and inevitably failing because they cannot sustain. And then they feel like they are the failure, when in reality, they are not the failure. The failure is the strategy that they are adopting. And then it just becomes a toxic cycle.
So good. It's so true. I think that all diets, like if you name it a diet, it's supposed to be temporary. It's not supposed to be a way you live your life or sustainable. It's to achieve certain outcomes or results, but then you have to have a plan to follow that up, which makes me bring up or ask you, what are the foundational pieces for sustainable results for a healthy, fit, incredible body?
I love that. So I'm gonna go by the pillars that we use in my program, because I feel like they are the pillars that I have seen that worked for me. And we see the rinse and repeat of a lot of the ladies. We've worked with over 5,000 women. So I think that we have enough data to back it up. I think that the first thing is the mindset. That's pillar number one. And I feel like that's a big piece of the puzzle that is missing in, I would say, the majority of fitness programs currently, because like I was talking in the beginning, they just address the logistical piece of it. They're not addressing the other dimensions of someone. So, having the mindset, because the way that I look, you guys cannot see my hands, but I'll try to talk it through. If the body changes, but the mind doesn't change, the body is going to go back to where the mind is, because the mind is the set point for the body. So if you transform your body, but you're still stuck on the perfectionist mentality, the all or nothing, the extremes, the comparison game, all of that, it's just a matter of time until you go back. And that's why people stay stuck on that cycle. So you need to help the mind and the body progress together. A lot of times they don't progress at the same time. But what happens is that if you have a little bump on the road right here on your physique journey, the pushback is just a little bit instead of coming all the way back to the beginning.
Right.
So we need to address that. And, that's why we have the emotional piece of, and another thing that I feel like a lot of people don't understand is how much the way that you were brought up is associated with how you perceive fitness and nutrition.
100%.
Like there is and again, I'm not a mental health expert, but we do have a mental health expert on my team. because it is outside my scope. But I'm seeing repeatedly, people that come from homes that there was a lot of chaos, there was a lot of abuse, like you name whatever kind of abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, all the kind of abuse, or a lot of criticism in the home to the children. These kids grow up to have a sense of loss of control of themselves, because and the only way that they control themselves is through their bodies. So you see a big rate of like eating disorders or very significant disordered eating patterns with people with this kind of upbringing. And if you do not understand that, everything beyond that just becomes a Band-Aid.
Absolutely, because you have to break up with that pattern. I mean, so many people emotionally eat.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, huge. Okay,
So
so
that's pillar one. And then pillar number two is going to be the training. I mean, you do have to have a training, but here's the part that I think that we need to look at it. The training needs to understand the season of life that the person is in. Like in time and time again, I see people sign up. Oh, I'm going to sign up for these challenges. Like I have to train 7 days a week and it has to be 2 times a day. And then how are you going to be able to sustain that? How are you going to be able to stay consistent with that? Especially if we're talking about a demographic, women with kids at home, who work a full-time job, like 60 hours, 70 hours sometimes a week, who have a spouse, who have kids in, extracurricular activities. How is that something that is sustainable without having a mental breakdown? It's not. So it is about meeting the person where they're at. And, everybody evolves, but just because you are not where you want to be yet, it doesn't mean that it's like, oh, whatever, what's the point of even starting? So we need to meet people where they're at. If all you can commit to is 3 times a week for 15 minutes, 3 times a week, cool. We need to set the expectations. Results are not going to come as quickly. However, they're going to come, which is much better than where you are right now. So that's 2. And then the other one is like the hands-on coaching, understanding how the person's body moves, how to make the necessary modifications, how to adapt. We work with a lot of women that travel. So how are you going to make the transition whenever you are training in a hotel gym? That's part of life. What if you're going on a vacation with your family? What does that look like? So that part, the accountability, and I think that people give a lot of weight to accountability. I do think that it's important. But whenever you're constantly relying on outside source for accountability, you're looking for, adult babysitter. And I don't think that that's what coaching is.
well, also that comes to when people outsource their motivation.
Yeah.
I think that, if we're constantly like, oh, I'm not motivated to go to the gym, it's like, it's not about motivation. There has to be a deeper seated why you're going to the gym, and that will bring motivation.
100%. 100%. So I'm very big, and I'm like, if you're looking for a daytime babysitter, eyeing it. Because then it becomes too much of a burden. And like, I would take it too personally on wanting the change for someone more than they want for themselves. And I don't think that's fair on me and on my team.
Yeah.
The person needs to understand that they need to have a level of accountability to self. Because if you don't care that, if you don't change in 2 years, you might die of diabetes, there is nothing that I can do.
Yeah.
So we do have guardrails for accountability, and I think that accountability is important. But relying on external accountability to be a daytime, like I say I'm not a bunch of grown women babysitter, like not. So that's the other one. So coaching and accountability, and then the last one is the nutrition, which is we have to adapt the nutrition to a person's specific, preference. What is their lifestyle? The whole idea, oh, you have to stop eating at a certain time. Okay, but what if we're working with a physician that works shifts? Do they spend the whole night without eating, even though they're working and it's technically their daytime? So I feel that there are so many hard rules around the nutrition piece. Like, for example, if we've worked with a sommelier, somebody who like tastes wine and things like that. How is it that it is remotely realistic for me to look at someone who is a sommelier and be like, oh my goodness, you shouldn't drink at all. You are terrible if you do. That is part of her job.
Right.
So it's about adapting. And again, I'm not saying, oh my God, drink alcohol because that's going to be the best thing ever, but it's about using a little bit of common sense to meet people where they're at. So these would be kind of like the pillars in which we work with.
Great. Okay. So let's talk about nutrition a little bit, because this is obviously a big component. So everybody knows protein, 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 eat your protein. Like it's your job. And I think that is very valid. I think that especially you cater towards women over 35. I think protein is the way. But what is your take on macros, and specifically talking about protein, but also carbs? Because women, I'll speak for myself, have been afraid of carbs. I'm more aware of it now because I try to keep my hormones healthy, and I kind of shift things with my cycle. Mm-hmm. But what can you say about protein and also carbs?
A great question. So it's interesting. There has been a recent, not so recent, but recent enough research. I have actually interviewed the person who did this research around protein, because the message is like, eat protein, which great, celebrate eating protein. But the thing is that the consumption of protein, if your goal is to have lean mass, like lean muscle, and which it's not just from an aesthetics standpoint. Like building lean muscle is going to help you, be able to get out of the toilet when you are 80 years old without falling and breaking a hip. So I'm talking here beyond just the aesthetic side of it. We're not talking just six pack. Whenever you're just eating protein, but you do not have the breakdown of the muscle through strength training to give a job to that protein, it's almost like quote unquote irrelevant. Obviously, it's still better than eating a bunch of crap and being like, oh, what's the point of if eating protein? I mean, it's going to help you with satiety, can help mitigate fat loss, but from the true benefit of protein that is spoken about and it's encouraging people to eat, which is for muscle repair and muscle growth, without the component of strength training, the math doesn't math. So you need the muscle breakdown in order for the protein to go there and repair it. Without the muscle breakdown, it's just protein without the benefit of it.
Right.
So that would be the main thing about protein. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, and also I know, at least I think it's pretty right on when you say 1 pound per ideal body weight is the goal.
Yeah, I mean, great question. So ideally, yeah, we're looking at about 1 gram per pound. However, it kind of brings back to understanding where the person is in life. Okay. If we start, like if somebody comes to me and I look at their nutrition prior and I see that they're eating like almost no protein, like almost nothing, jumping from 0 to 100, it's going to make the sustainability piece of it very difficult. So again, it goes back to meeting people where they're at. Optimally, yes, we're looking at about 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That's the give and take.
Yeah.
Anything more than that, there is not significant evidence that is going to be all that great, and it makes the adherence a bit more challenging. But if we're talking about somebody who doesn't eat a lot of protein right now, I can give them all the protein in the world, but it's going to make it very challenging for them to stick to the plan. So if they come to us and they're like at about 0.3 grams per pound, that is a big jump to go from 0.3 to 1. So how about we go from 0.3 to 5 and be like, how do you feel?
Yeah.
You feeling good? Okay, awesome. All right. And then we stabilize there. And then we go to 0.7. How does that feel? And then you build from there. It's kind of, and go on a tangent here, it's kind of the whole idea with these steps. 10,000 steps, great. Yeah. But if I start talking to somebody who, they get 2,500 steps a day, that is too much of a big jump to tell someone to walk 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
So how about we increase from 2,500 to 3,000? And then from 3,000, we're like, you feeling good? Okay, good. You're going to try 4,000. And then they try the 4,000. They feel even better. And then we're like, how about we try 5,000? So it's about that reading the room. I think that would be the best description of it. And that's how the fitness aspect works as well. And now to talk about carbs, it's interesting because whenever you look at the data, the evidence is very conclusive that over time, the fat loss of a low carb and just a low calorie intake is the same. What makes the appeal of carbs for most people is that there is a more aggressive weight loss, not fat loss, weight loss at the front end. Why? Because every little thingy, every molecule of broken down carbohydrate attracts water.
I was just
4 to 5 grams. So whenever you stop the carbs, you get rid of those glycogen molecules. They get out of the body, and with them, it goes the water. So it's a significant drop. So from a buying-in standpoint, that's why it became so popular, because it has a good buy-in, because you're getting quote unquote quick results right out of the gate. But we need to differentiate weight loss versus fat loss. It's not the same thing.
And how would you address somebody, if somebody comes to you or just anybody listening that doesn't even have a coach that wants to start going after fat loss specifically? What would be just your standard overarching approach? I know it depends on the person and where they're at.
Yeah, I think that if people want to take action from where they are right now, with a coach or without a coach, I think that there is a lot of information on what, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. True. But what is even better is for people to stick with it. So, for example, if I'm speaking with someone and the person is like, oh my goodness, I love Chick-fil-A. Love Chick-fil-A. I have Chick-fil-A 5 days a week. It's the best thing ever. Do I think that Chick-fil-A is the best choice? No, but it's not for me to decide. So what if I come to that person and I'm like, hey, you can keep your Chick-fil-A. But what if instead of eating Chick-fil-A 5 times a week, you reduce that to 3 times a week? And then the other days that you'd have Chick-fil-A, you have a homemade meal that is more aligned with your goals. Would that work? Because I feel like people panic the moment, it's kind of like a child. The moment that you tell a child that they cannot have something, guess what they're going to do? They're going to do the thing that you told them that they can't do. So do I think that fast food is going to be the best thing ever and it's optimal for health and all of that? Not really. But the bigger picture goal is for people to stay consistent. And a lot of times, just telling people all the things that they cannot do does not build a good foundation for sustainability and long-term success. So these would be the things. Okay, so you eat Chick-fil-A 5 times a week. How about we reduce that to 3 times a week? You go out and you get shit-faced and you're having a bottle and a half of wine. That's not good, because drunk people are not looking for lettuce as a snack. They're going for all the things. I'm yet to see a person who is hungover or drunk that is like, celery sounds great right now. That doesn't happen. Yeah. So instead of having a bottle and a half of wine on the weekend, how about we reduce that to maybe a bottle-ish, maybe less? Because what happens is that whenever they reduce that, they are going to feel better.
Right.
And then I don't have to convince them about how much better they are going to feel. They will feel that themselves. And then there is going to be agency and autonomy on the decision to go from maybe 1 bottle to half a bottle. And then from half a bottle to no bottles at all, because they see how much better they feel. So, and I think that is kind of like dropping the crumbs and helping people understand that we don't need to go from 0 to 100 right out of the gate. And the perception from the outside for a lot of fitness professionals is going to be like, oh my goodness, but like Chick-fil-A is not good for you and it's not good. Like alcohol is not good for you. I'm not saying that it's good, but it's much better to give people agency to make choices. That way they can stay on it in the long haul than to have them go all in for like a month and then crash and burn and then go back to their old habits.
So good. What do you think are the lies and the myths about the fitness and nutrition industry that you're hearing a lot about?
Oh, geez. A lot of the myths. Mastering on the minors. And what I mean by that is like splitting hairs over the most optimal time to have the organic food that is being collected from the top of the Himalayan with the sprinkle of a blood of a virgin when they're still eating 5,500 calories a day. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It does not matter if trying to optimize shits is still going to be shit. Trying to put a lipstick in a pig is still going to be a pig. Now, once we master the masters, like the foundation, then we can start to talk about optimizing and making things better. But I think that the splitting hairs over things that are ultimately not going to move the needle as much is it's burning a lot of people. It's making people become very burned out. Because if you're focusing and obsessing over the 3% instead of focusing and obsessing over the 97%, you're not going to see results as quickly. And then if you don't see results, you give up. So focus on the 97%. And then once we're like very good at the 97%, then we start to optimize the heck out of everything. But trying to optimize a system that is not good is not going to give you results.
So what do you think is the biggest thing people are missing when they're trying to approach their goals? What's the thing they're neglecting that you are seeing with your clients?
Patience. They're neglecting that, again, kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. They're neglecting the fact that just because, like, you can get help all you want, but getting help does not eliminate the need for the process. It's kind of like you can sign up to the gym, but if you don't show up to the gym, you're not going to be in shape. And like the patience in the process, it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to go do this because I want this to be a change for life. And then you are in it, that is a change for life. And then, oh my goodness, why is it that I didn't lose 10 pounds in the first week? Because every time that I did the cleanse, I lost 10 pounds in a week. Right. And then you gain it all back. So understanding that there is there is a process, and the beauty of understanding the process is that you're not going to keep on starting over, but you have to be patient with it. So I think patience, especially in the society that we're living today,
Sure.
Where everything's quick and all the promises is like, the promises are like as quickly as possible, as fast as possible. No, like, and one thing that is also important to understand, that it's not just about the results, it's about who you become in the process of getting the results, because that is what's going to dictate your long-term success, not the result itself.
Mic drop, because that statement alone means everything. Really does. So for anybody that can't afford a coach or a trainer and they are not able to work specifically with you or really anybody, what would be your advice for them to begin to start the process? Like, let's say, you work with mostly women over 35, so people that are in perimenopause or menopause, which is a different stage of life. So what changes should they be looking at when it comes to addressing that stage of life? Like, would you say more strength training, add in Pilates? Like, I know that's a loaded question, everything I'm asking, but if they can't work with somebody like you, where should they begin?
That's a great question. So do hormonal changes happen during perimenopause and menopause? Yes, they do. But what I'm finding is that a lot of times it just becomes, it's the hormones, but there is no consistency. It's kind of like, when was the last time that you worked out? Well, I want to build muscles and like I walk my dog. Like you're not going to build muscle by walking your dog. Walking your dog is great, but we need to have alignment with what you're doing and what your goal is. So I think that the first thing like to do is have clarity on your goal. And I find that what is happening right now with the whole, the scale doesn't matter, which I don't necessarily 100% subscribe to. I think the scale is a great tool. I don't like how it's being used for a long time as an absolute tool. You cannot build a house just with a hammer, but it doesn't mean that you don't need a hammer to build a house.
Right.
So, and I think that like the scale is a tool, and it's a very easily available tool. So having some kind of goal is specific and tangible. It's going to make a lot easier to track progress, because a lot of times people are tracking progress. I just want to feel good. I mean, there are days that I don't feel good. So does that mean that I'm not going to show up for work? Some days I don't feel like working. Everybody knows the crap out of me. I'm just not going to like show up. No, you still show up because you have to do it. So I think that just going by feelings alone is not a very good measuring stick, like data point. So first thing is to have clarity on your goals. Second thing is audit your time and see where you can realistically and consistently dedicate time to exercising and make that like an appointment in your calendar. Like I still have my workouts as an appointment in my calendar blocked out every single day.
Yeah.
So you block your schedule for your kids' appointment. You block your schedule for that recurring meeting. You block your schedule for a doctor appointment that you have. So why are we not blocking our schedule for something that is preventative? To not need to have block for all those doctor appointments. And be realistic in the sense of like, yes, I know that we want to go balls to the walls and like, I want to get all the workouts done immediately, blah, blah, blah. But is that something that you can maintain? Wouldn't it be much better? Like, can you realistically commit to 3 times a week for 20 minutes? Start there. And kind of going back to, and the direction for women in perimenopause and menopause wouldn't be as significantly different as someone who just wants to lose weight. Because what happens, it's kind of like it becomes a problem of what comes first, the egg or the chicken. A lot of the symptoms from menopause can be mitigated by an improvement in quality of life through exercise and improved nutrition. Like, for example, hot flashes. Having a lot of visceral fat is going to make those symptoms worse. Why? Because the fat's going to insulate you even more. So the hot flashes are going to become even worse. Then whenever you have hot flashes, your sleep goes to crap. Whenever your sleep is not good, you're not going to have your hunger and satiety hormones are going to be all out of whack. You're going to be lethargic, which means that you're not going to be wanting to exercise as much. So, the guidelines for women in perimenopause and menopause and just someone who wants to lose weight wouldn't be super different. I think you would be it's important to highlight the importance even more of strength training in that season of life. You need the muscle, especially because the perimenopause and menopause season is a season where there is and it just comes from the aging process. There is very little evidence that it is directly related to the hormones themselves, but just the aging process makes you lose a significant amount of muscle mass throughout the years. And that's another problem with aggressive dieting, that aggressive dieting can make you lose about 25% of what you lose a lot of times come from muscle. So if you lose 10 pounds, 2.5 of that is muscle that it's very unlikely that you're going to gain back whenever you gain it back. So these would be kind of like my tips.
Amazing. Well, there's been a wealth of information here, and I love so many things you shared in this episode that I think really applies to everybody that they kind of need to be slapped in the face with. If you want to say, some of the things, I mean, really, like you said, the patience, I think is a big thing because people want this immediate results, like lose 10 pounds in 5 days or, and I think everything you share is so valuable for people to really be slapped in the face with because it is really that is like being grace, like giving yourself a little grace, patience, and just like have a deep seated why you want to achieve this goal and, do the steps needed to take to get there in the season of life you're in. So much goodness. Where can people find you or find more about, of course, your programs? And then you have a podcast. So if you could mention that.
Thank you so much first, Erica, for having me. I feel like I monopolized the conversation, so I apologize. You can find me on social. It's Nathalia Melo Fit, Nathalia Melo Fit. I'm pretty sure you're going to have it on the show notes, so you can just go to the show notes. And in my podcast, it's called Unfiltered Fit Life Podcast. It's a lot of my thoughts. I love to record podcasts whenever like I experience something and I come home and I go straight to record because I feel like the feelings are very raw and things like that. So these would be the main things. If you have any questions about this episode, please send me a message on social. I'm the one who answers, and I love, this interaction because I think it also helps me learn about people and what they want and what they need, and to provide them what is going to meet them where they are right now.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for the conversation.
You're welcome.